In this video, we're going to learn how to convert a quadratic function that's in standard form into vertex form by completing the square. So let's look at this question together. It says, write the function y equals 5x squared minus 30x plus 7 in vertex form by completing the square. Use your answer to identify the vertex of the function. So before we get into this question, just as a quick review, remember standard form can be written as y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. So this is the form that they gave you in the question, and this is standard form. What they're asking you for in the question is vertex form, which can be written as y is equal to ax minus h squared plus k. So this is your vertex form. And the advantage to vertex form, which it's in the name, is that it gives you your vertex. And your vertex is just equal to h comma k. So the h tells you your x coordinate of the vertex and the k tells you your y coordinate of the vertex. The other thing you'll notice about vertex form is it has x minus h squared. And x minus h squared is the factored version of a perfect square trinomial. So that's what we'll be creating by completing the square in this question. So let's go through this question. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a series of steps that will work every single time. And we're going to go through them one by one. So there's your series of steps. I'm going to start by writing out the equation, which is y is equal to 5x squared minus 30x plus 7. So step 1 says factor out the leading coefficient from the first two terms. So what we're going to do is we're only going to focus on our x squared term and our x term. And if it helps you, you can also put brackets around those terms. The 7 just kind of hangs around. You can ignore the 7 for now. And what we're going to do is we're going to factor out the leading coefficient, which in this case is the 5, but just from the first two terms. So I'm going to take the 5 out, and then what I have left in brackets would be 5x squared divided by 5, which is just x squared, and then negative 30x divided by 5, which is negative 6x. And outside the brackets, I still just have the 7. So that is my first step done. The next thing I'm going to do is take the coefficient of the x term inside the brackets, divide it by 2, and then square it. So what does that mean? The coefficient of the x term is just the number that's in front of the x inside the brackets. In this case, it's the negative 6. I'm going to take that negative 6 and divide it by 2, which will give me negative 3. And then I'm going to take that negative 3 and I'm going to square it, which will give me 9. Now the negative 3 is important, so I'm going to stick it in a box just because we'll use it later. So don't forget about that negative 3. I find it helpful to stick it in a box. What we're going to do with our 9, because we did step 2 now, our 9 is for step 3. So add and subtract the squared number inside the brackets. So what does that mean? That just means that our x squared minus 6x is going to stay. We're going to add the 9. And adding that 9 creates that perfect square trinomial, but we can't just add 9 to the question. So we have to subtract 9 as well, so we're not changing the question. And then we're going to have a 7 outside. Now we don't actually want that 9 there, which brings us to step 4. Remove the negative number by multiplying it by the leading coefficient. So we want to take that 9 outside of the brackets. But in order to do that, we have to multiply it by this number, which in this case is 5. So we're going to multiply the 9 by 5 in order to take it outside of the brackets. What that's going to leave us with is y is equal to 5, x squared minus 6x plus 9. And we can close our brackets. Our negative 9 is removed from the brackets by multiplying it by 5, which will turn it into negative 45. And then the plus 7 stays at the end. And now we get to the very last step, which is factor the perfect square trinomial. So remember at the beginning where I said that this negative 3 is important? The negative 3 comes into play right at the very end because in order to factor that, it's just x and then whatever that number is, so minus 3 squared. And at the end, we can simplify the negative 45 plus 7, which gives us negative 38. So now what we've done is we've gone from standard form at the very beginning. So this was standard form. We have successfully converted this into vertex form here. But we aren't done the question yet because the question said, use your answer to identify the vertex of the function. So remember, the vertex of our function is just our h and our k. But remember, your h in your formula has a negative in front of it. So when you get your vertex, you're taking the 3 and the negative 38. So it's almost like your sign is changing for the x coordinate. It's not going to be negative 3, it's just going to be positive 3. So the vertex in this case will be positive 3, negative 38. And that's your vertex.